The Meridian Drift had been dying for 3 days before Ren Coulter finally admitted it. He stood in the engine room, coolant dripping onto his shoulder from a ruptured line, watching the diagnostic screen cycle through errors like a greatest hits compilation of mechanical failure. The quantum drive had simply given up, not dramatically, not with explosions or sirens, but with the quiet resignation of something that had worked too hard for too long. Well, he said to no one, because talking to himself had become habit after 6 years of solo freight runs, at least you waited until we reached civilization. Civilization in this case meant Valros. The trade moon hung in the amber light of a dying star, its surface carved into sprawling districts where a dozen species conducted business in 100 languages. Ren had docked at Port 16 on emergency clearance, his ship limping into berth like a drunk finding his doorstep. The harbor master, a creature resembling an upright lobster in a fluorescent vest, had taken one look at his drive readings and laughed. Actually laughed. Apparently, quantum drive failures of this magnitude were legendary enough to be funny. 6 weeks. That was the estimate for replacement parts. 6 weeks of station fees that would drain his accounts faster than a hull breach drains oxygen. He was calculating exactly how many meals he could skip when his comm unit chirped with a message from Tavik. Heard about your ship. Come stay with us. Family has room. Don't argue. Ren stared at the message for a long moment. He and Tavik had met 2 years ago on Kalendra Station, when a customs dispute had threatened to impound Tavik's cargo over paperwork errors. Ren, waiting in the same line for his own bureaucratic nightmare, had noticed the young Karathi's ears flattening with distress. A gesture he'd learned meant genuine fear, not the irritation humans might assume. He'd stepped in, helped translate the forms into something the customs AI would accept, and earned himself a friend who apparently took such debts seriously. The Karathi were like that, he'd learned. They remembered kindness the way other species remembered insults. Tavik met him at the port with a transport skiff that had seen better decades. His ears were up, relaxed, and he clasped Ren's forearm in the Karathi greeting before switching to a very human handshake. You look terrible, Tavik said cheerfully. His accent made human words slightly musical, consonants softened by a tongue evolved for different sounds. My ship is held together by optimism and duct tape. I haven't slept in 2 days. But thank you for noticing. This is why you need proper food and a proper bed. My mother will feed you until you can't move. This is not negotiable. The family compound rose in the Karathi district like a vertical garden, balconies spilling with plants that thrived in the amber light. Ren noticed the ceremonial scratches on the doorframe as they entered, claw marks that meant something about territory and welcome. Though Tavik had never fully explained the distinction, he removed his boots at the threshold because Tavik had once mentioned it mattered, and caught his friend's small nod of approval. The interior smelled of spices Ren couldn't name, and warmth that felt older than the building itself. Tavik's mother emerged from what appeared to be a kitchen, her white fur streaked with gray, her ears perked forward with curiosity. She spoke rapid Karathi to her son, and Ren caught only fragments. Human, guest, and a word that might have meant skinny. She says you're too thin, Tavik translated. She's going to fix this. I told you. I'm starting to think I should have stayed on my dying ship. Too late. You're ours now. The words were casual, a joke, but something about them settled strangely in Ren's chest. Ours. The Karathi had concepts of belonging that humans barely understood. Clan ties that went deeper than blood, obligations that lasted generations. He was being welcomed into something he couldn't fully comprehend. Tavik showed him to the guest quarters, a small room with a window overlooking the district's central market. The bed was lower than human standard. The lighting tinged amber, but it was clean and warm and didn't smell like recycled air and mechanical failure. The refresher is down the hall, Tavik said. Don't touch the blue bottles. Those are my father's and he's particular. The kitchen is always open. My mother will pretend to be offended if you don't eat at least twice a day. Ren noticed a door at the far end of the corridor, sealed and dark. What's that room? Tavik's ears flattened briefly before he controlled the response. My sister's quarters. She's been serving in the merchant fleet for 3 years. The room stays closed. There was something in his tone that discouraged questions, so Ren didn't ask them. Families were complicated in every species. That night, he unpacked his few belongings and found a datapad that had been left in the room's storage compartment. The screen flickered to life at his touch, displaying text in flowing Karathi script. Poetry, maybe, or prayers. He couldn't read it, but something about the careful formatting suggested importance. He set it aside carefully, making a mental note to return it to Tavik in the morning. Outside the window, Valros turned slowly beneath the amber star, its markets and districts and countless lives continuing their ancient dance of commerce and connection. Somewhere out in the void, a merchant fleet vessel was changing course, its captain filing shore leave she had never before requested, for reasons she couldn't have explained even to herself. But Ren Coulter knew nothing of this. He knew only that he was tired, that his ship was broken, and that for the first time in months he was sleeping somewhere that felt almost like belonging. 3 days into his stay, Ren had learned several important things about Karathi households. First, declining food was considered a minor insult. Second, declining food twice was considered a declaration of war. Third, Tavik's mother had apparently decided that Ren's continued existence was her personal responsibility, and she approached this duty with the intensity of a military campaign. "I've gained 2 kilos, Ren said, staring at the bathroom scale he'd borrowed from the ship. "In 3 days. "Mother is very efficient," Tavik replied without sympathy. "You should see what she did to my cousin after his divorce. He couldn't fit through standard doorways for a month." Ren was formulating a response when the household comm system chimed with an incoming message. Tavik's ears swiveled toward the sound, and something in his posture shifted. A tension Ren had learned to recognize. "What is it?" "My sister's ship has docked." Tavik's voice was carefully neutral. "She's coming home." "I thought she hadn't taken leave in 3 years." "She hasn't." There was a story there, buried in the flatness of Tavik's tone, but before Ren could pursue it, the household erupted into motion. Tavik's mother emerged from the kitchen, speaking rapid Karathi, her ears alternating between excitement and what looked like concern. His father appeared from the study, a tall figure with silver-white fur and the quiet authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Ren retreated to his room, recognizing a family moment that didn't require his presence. Through the thin walls, he could hear the musical rise and fall of Karathi voices, preparations being made, old tensions surfacing and being smoothed over. The sealed door at the end of the corridor was opened, for the first time since his arrival, and cleaning drones hummed past his room carrying fresh linens. She arrived at sunset, when the amber light turned the district into something from a fever dream. Ren was in the kitchen attempting to help with dinner and mostly getting in the way when the front door cycled open. He heard Tavik's greeting, his mother's cry of welcome, his father's deeper rumble of acknowledgement, and then footsteps in the corridor, confident and measured, approaching the kitchen where Ren stood holding a bowl of something he couldn't identify. Shayara stepped through the doorway and the air changed. She was taller than Tavik, lean in the way of someone who lived in ship corridors and zero-gravity cargo holds. Her skin was pale white, almost luminous against the dark fabric of her merchant fleet uniform. Her hair was black and cropped shorter than any Karathi woman Ren had seen, and her ears were longer than her brother's, tapering to sharp points that seemed to catch the light. But it was her eyes that stopped him, dark as polished onyx, reflecting nothing, seeming to absorb the amber glow rather than return it. She looked at Ren, and her movement ceased entirely, not paused, ceased, like a predator identifying something unexpected in familiar territory. "You didn't mention we had a guest." Her voice was lower than he expected, her human words accented differently than Tavik's. Sharper, more precise. "This is Ren," Tavik said from behind her, and Ren caught the slight strain in his friend's voice. "I told you about him, the engineer from Kalendra Station." "You told me about him." Something flickered across her face, too fast to read. "You didn't tell me he was living here." "His ship is being repaired." It seemed unkind to let him spend 6 weeks in port hostels. Shayara's gaze hadn't left Ren's face. He felt it like a physical weight, like being assessed by scanning equipment that could see through hull plating. He should say something. He should introduce himself, offer a greeting, do any of the normal things that normal people did when meeting their friend's family. "I'm making dinner worse," he said instead, holding up the bowl. "Your mother keeps giving me tasks I'm not qualified for." The corner of Shayara's mouth twitched. It might have been amusement. It might have been contempt. Humans usually aren't. She turned and left the kitchen without another word, her footsteps retreating toward the newly opened room at the corridor's end. Ren released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. "She seems friendly," he said. Tavik's ears were completely flat. "She's been in deep space for 3 years. Her social skills have atrophied." "Is that what we're calling it?" "I'm calling it that because the alternatives are less polite." Over the following days, Ren began to understand that Shayara existed in the household, like a moon in unstable orbit, present but distant, her gravity affecting everything without direct contact. She appeared at meals but spoke little, responding to her mother's questions in monosyllables and her father's attempts at conversation with the bare minimum of courtesy. She ignored Tavik almost entirely, a coldness between siblings that no one explained. But she watched Ren. He noticed it first in the common room, where he'd been reading technical manuals on a borrowed datapad. She sat across the space, ostensibly reviewing fleet reports, but every time he glanced up, her eyes were on him. Not hostile, not friendly, something else entirely, an intensity that made his skin prickle with awareness. He noticed it again in the corridor, where she positioned herself between him and exits without seeming conscious of the behavior. In the kitchen, where she reached past him for a utensil, and her arm brushed his with what couldn't have been accident. In the rooftop garden, where he found her standing at dawn, hands gripping the railing, whispering words in Karathi that he couldn't understand. "Your sister hates me," he told Tavik on the third night. Tavik made a sound that wasn't quite a laugh. If only it were that simple. The third night began like the others, Ren lying awake in the low Karathi bed, listening to the hum of the climate systems and the distant sounds of the market district settling into its nocturnal rhythm. Sleep had become difficult since Shayara's arrival. He kept catching himself listening for footsteps in the corridor, kept finding his thoughts circling back to those dark eyes and their unreadable weight. He was contemplating whether warm milk worked across species when he realized he wasn't alone. Shayara stood inside his door, the door that he had locked, the door that was now sealed behind her, its magnetic bolts engaged with a soft click that sounded very final. "How did you—" "Fleet command codes override civilian security." She said it like she was explaining weather patterns. "The locks on this building are 40 years obsolete." Ren sat up slowly, his heart beginning to hammer in a way that felt distinctly biological and unhelpfully distracting. "Is there a reason you're breaking into my room at—" He checked the time display. 3 in the morning? "Yes." She didn't elaborate. Instead, she moved further into the room, and Ren noticed for the first time that she was trembling. Not obviously. A human observer might have missed it entirely. But he'd spent days watching her, learning the small tells of Karathi body language, and he could see the fine tremor in her hands, the rapid pulse visible at her throat. "Shayara, what's happening?" She stopped at the foot of his bed, close enough that he could smell something floral and unfamiliar. Her soap, maybe, or some Karathi custom he hadn't encountered. Her ears were pressed flat against her skull, and when she spoke, her voice cracked on the first word. "Aitsin." The word meant nothing to him. He shook his head and she made a sound of frustration, switching to heavily accented human speech. "Mine. You are mine. I am claiming." "I'm sorry, you're what?" "Saketh." She pressed her palm against her chest, over her heart. "Recognition, binding. When Karathi female finds the one who fits, the one who belongs. There is no choice. There's only knowing." Ren's brain, usually reliable in crisis situations, had apparently decided to take a brief vacation. "Are you saying you want to date me? Because there are easier ways to ask, ones that don't involve breaking into bedrooms and speaking in riddles." "Not dating." Her dark eyes held his, and the intensity there made his breath catch. "Claiming. By the old laws, by blood right. When I speak these words, we are bound, both of us, until resolution." "Resolution meaning what, exactly?" "Combat, which you would lose. Formal rejection, which requires blood price." She swallowed hard. "Or acceptance." The pieces began assembling themselves in Ren's mind, forming a picture he didn't like at all. "And if I just walk out that door? Say thanks but no thanks? Good talk. Let's never speak of this again?" "You cannot. The door is locked and I cannot release you until dawn. And rejection without formal process is insult requiring blood price." She looked away for the first time. "My blood, my life possibly. Karathi honor is not flexible. So you've trapped me in a room and told me that leaving means you might die?" Ren heard his voice climbing toward a register he didn't love. "I have to say, this is not how I expected this week to go. I didn't plan this. You literally overrode my door locks. The claiming. I didn't plan the claiming." Her composure fractured, and suddenly she looked less like a predator and more like someone drowning. "I watched you, for 2 years, through messages Tavik sent home, through images, through the stories he told. I watched you be kind to my brother when you had no reason for kindness. I watched you laugh. I watched you treat our customs with respect when most humans don't bother. And I thought I could control it. I thought I could come home and see you and feel nothing. Clearly, that plan worked beautifully. Kirathi, recognition is not a choice. Her voice broke. It is knowing. It is certainty. It is my blood telling me that you are the one I have been looking for, and every moment in your presence makes the knowing stronger. And I tried to stay away. I tried. 3 days, Ren said. You tried for 3 days. I tried for 3 years. She met his eyes again, and the raw vulnerability there silenced his objections. Every message from Tavik, every mention of your name. I tried to convince myself it was fascination, curiosity about the human who helped my brother. But when I saw you in the kitchen, holding that bowl like you had no idea what to do with it, looking at me like I was something dangerous, you are something dangerous. You locked me in a room. I know. She sank down onto the edge of the bed, maintaining careful distance. I know what I've done. I've violated guest right. I've claimed without courtship, chosen an alien, bound my brother's friend without clan permission. My family will be furious. The elders will be scandalized. And none of it mattered when I was standing outside your door, and my heart was saying the only word it knows how to say. They sat in silence as the night deepened around them. Ren should have been angry. He was angry. But underneath the anger was something else. A strange recognition of his own, a sense of pieces clicking into place that he wasn't ready to examine. What happens at dawn? He finally asked. Tavik will come looking for you. He'll find the locked door. He'll understand what I've done. And then we face what comes together. She looked at him with those bottomless dark eyes. Whether you want to or not, that is the nature of Sakath. The binding holds us both. Dawn came like a verdict, amber light creeping across the floor. The door chimed once, twice. Then Tavik's voice, confused at first, then sharp with growing alarm. When the magnetic locks finally disengaged and the door slid open, Tavik stood in the corridor with his claws extended and his ears flat, and his expression shifting from confusion to horror to fury in the space of a single breath. What have you done? He whispered. Shayara rose to face her brother, and her voice was steady even as her hands shook. I have claimed him, by blood right and old law, and I will answer for it. The household exploded into chaos with an efficiency Ren might have admired under different circumstances. Tavik's mother appeared in the corridor within seconds, her ears rotating through emotions faster than Ren could track. His father emerged from the study with the measured calm of someone who had weathered many storms, though his claws clicked against the floor in a rhythm that suggested controlled fury. Kirathi voices filled the air, rapid, musical, and completely incomprehensible. Ren caught his own name several times, heard the word Sakath repeated like a curse, watched Shayara stand her ground against the combined weight of her family's disapproval, with her chin raised and her shoulders rigid. I don't suppose anyone wants to explain what's happening, he asked. No one answered. Tavik was speaking to his father in low, urgent tones. His mother had taken Shayara by the arm and pulled her toward the common room, still talking in that rapid-fire Kirathi that sounded increasingly like an interrogation. Ren stood in the corridor in his sleep clothes, feeling distinctly like a piece of furniture that had suddenly become controversial. You should eat something, Tavik finally said, turning to face him. His ears were still flat, but his claws had retracted. The elders will be summoned. There will be arbitration. It will take hours, and no one will remember to feed you. Arbitration for what exactly? For the claiming. For what my sister has done. Tavik's jaw tightened. You are bound by Kirathi law while on our territory. The Sakath cannot simply be ignored. There are procedures, protocols, ways to resolve this that don't end in blood. I really wish people would stop mentioning blood so casually. I really wish my sister hadn't claimed my best friend like a piece of lost cargo. Tavik's voice cracked, and Ren saw something underneath the anger. Hurt, betrayal, the particular wound of family trust violated. She knew better. She knows the laws. She chose to break them anyway. The arbitration meetings began that afternoon in halls carved from the moon's native stone, ancient chambers where Kirathi had resolved disputes for centuries before humans ever reached the stars. Ren sat in a chair designed for bodies differently proportioned than his, listening to elders debate his future in a language he couldn't speak. Shayara sat across the chamber, flanked by clan representatives who seemed to view her as either a prize or a problem depending on who was talking. She caught his eye once and held it, something apologetic in her expression before her attention was demanded elsewhere. The days blurred together. Confined to the family compound pending resolution, Ren found himself navigating a strange new geography. Rooms that fell silent when he entered, glances that assessed him with uncomfortable intensity, meals eaten in awkward isolation, while the family conducted business he wasn't permitted to witness. It was Shiara who broke the pattern, appearing in the workshop where he'd retreated to tinker with his damaged communicator. She didn't ask permission to enter, simply sat down across the workbench and held out her hand. "You're doing it wrong." "Excuse me?" "The quantum alignment. You're calibrating for standard human frequencies. Valros runs on Karathi protocols, different wavelength architecture." She wiggled her fingers impatiently. "Give it to me." He handed over the communicator, mostly out of surprise. She began working with the quick competence of someone who'd spent years maintaining fleet equipment, her long fingers precise despite their slight tremor. "You're speaking better," he observed. "I've been practicing." She didn't look up. "Human language training programs. Your grammar is inefficient, but the vocabulary is manageable." "That's actually kind of sweet in a terrifying sort of way." Her hands paused. "You find me terrifying? You locked me in a room and told me we're cosmically bound. Most humans would find that at least slightly concerning. Most Karathi would find human courtship rituals equally disturbing. All that uncertainty, all those questions. How do you ever know if someone wants you when you have to ask?" Ren considered this. "Usually we just ask and hope for the best. Inefficient and dishonest." She resumed working on the communicator. "Karathi recognition removes the doubt. When I say you are mine, I am not guessing. I am not hoping. I am knowing, the way I know my own heartbeat." "And the part where I didn't get a vote?" Her hands stilled again. When she looked up, her dark eyes held something that might have been shame. "That part is, I understand why you're angry. In the old days, when Karathi only claimed Karathi, the knowing went both ways. The recognition was mutual. With you," she shook her head, "I don't know if humans can feel it. I don't know if you'll ever know me the way I know you." "What do you know about me?" The question seemed to surprise her. She set down the communicator and studied him with that intense focus he was beginning to recognize as simply how she looked at things she cared about. "I know you stayed an extra 6 hours at Kalendra Station to help a Karathi stranger with customs forms. I know you send money to a sister on Earth who doesn't write back. I know you named your ship after a star your mother showed you when you were young, even though that star is now obscured by a mining platform." She paused. "Tavik talks about you constantly. I have 3 years of messages. I know you better than you think." "That's not creepy at all." "It's very creepy. I'm aware." She almost smiled. "I'm not claiming to be reasonable. I'm claiming you specifically because reason stopped applying the moment I saw you." They worked in silence after that, Shiara finishing the repairs while Ren processed everything she'd said. The communicator chirped to life with perfect clarity, and she handed it back with something like pride. "Come to the rooftop garden tonight," she said, standing. "After the household sleeps. I want to show you something." "Should I be worried?" "Probably." This time she did smile, brief and startling. "But you're stuck with me regardless. You might as well know who I am." The rooftop garden existed in a different world than the rest of the compound. Plants from a dozen star systems grew in careful arrangements, their leaves catching the amber light of Valros's dying sun, even at night. Bioluminescent veins pulsing with soft color. Ren climbed the narrow stairs past midnight and found Shiara sitting among flowers that glowed like captured starlight. She had changed out of her fleet uniform into something softer, a loose garment in deep blue that made her white skin seem to glow. Her dark hair caught the plant light, and when she turned to face him, her onyx eyes reflected colors that shouldn't have been possible. "You came," she said. "You fixed my communicator." It seemed rude not to. She gestured to the space beside her, and he sat, maintaining careful distance out of habit more than intention. The city sprawled below them, market districts still alive with commerce even at this hour, transport vessels crossing the amber sky like slow-moving stars. "I used to sit here before I left for the fleet," Shiara said, "when my family was too much, when the expectations became suffocating. This garden was the only place I could breathe." "Why did you leave?" "Because staying meant becoming what they wanted, a proper Karathi daughter, a suitable match for some clan alliance." Her ears flattened briefly. "I wanted to see the universe. I wanted to be more than someone's breeding contract." Ren absorbed this, filing it alongside everything else he was learning about her. "And now you've come back and immediately entered a different kind of binding. The irony is not lost on me." She pulled a data pad from her garment and held it toward him. "I want you to see something, so you understand that this wasn't calculated, wasn't planned." The screen displayed a message archive stretching back 3 years. Hundreds of entries, all from Tavik, all carefully tagged and organized. She scrolled to the first mention of Ren's name and let him read. Met the strangest human today. Cargo dispute almost cost me the entire shipment, but this engineer, Ren, I think, stepped in and sorted the paperwork. Didn't ask for anything, just helped because he could. I don't understand humans sometimes. Keep reading, Shiara said quietly. He scrolled through months of messages, references to shared meals when their routes intersected, stories of Ren helping with repairs, sharing technical knowledge, making Tavik laugh with terrible jokes. And throughout, highlighted passages where Shiara had clearly gone back and marked sections about this human her brother couldn't stop mentioning. I told myself I was just curious, she said. Here was someone who treated my brother with genuine kindness, who respected our customs without being asked, who seemed to exist in the universe without demanding anything from it. She took the datapad back gently. I didn't realize I was falling in love with a ghost in my brother's letters until it was far too late. Love is a strong word for someone you'd never met. Is it? She turned to face him fully. I knew your laugh from the way Tavik described it. I knew your hands from the repair logs he sent when you helped him fix his navigation array. I knew the shape of your loneliness from the way you never talked about going home. Her voice dropped. I built you in my mind for 3 years, Ren, and when I saw you in that kitchen, the real version standing there looking at me with fear and confusion, all I could think was, finally, he's real and he's here, and I have waited so long. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone holding a bowl of unidentified food. She laughed, the first real laugh he'd heard from her, startled and genuine. You make jokes when you're uncomfortable. I make jokes constantly. It's a personality flaw. It's one of the things I love about you. The word hung between them, heavier the second time. Ren looked out at the city below, trying to sort through the tangle of his own emotions. Anger was still there, simmering beneath the surface, but it had company now, curiosity, confusion, and something warmer that he wasn't ready to name. The arbitration reaches its final stage tomorrow, Shiara said. They'll demand your choice, accept, reject, or combat. Combat seems inadvisable. You would last approximately 4 seconds. Fleet training is comprehensive. Good to know my odds. He turned back to her. And rejection means blood price, which I would pay willingly. If you truly cannot accept this, cannot accept me, I would rather face the consequences than keep you bound against your will. Her voice was steady, but her hands betrayed her, twisting together in her lap. I know what I did was wrong by your standards. I trapped you. I took your choice away. If the only way to give it back is to bleed for it, then that's what I'll do. There's a fourth option. She frowned. The laws recognize only 3 paths. The laws were written when Karathi only claimed Karathi. Ren had spent the past week reviewing every document Tavik could find, every precedent, every exception. There's a ceremony, mutual claiming, both parties speaking the binding words together. Her breath caught. That ceremony is for couples who recognize each other, where the knowing goes both ways. Maybe it does. The words surprised him even as he spoke them. Maybe I've been so busy being angry about how this happened that I missed what was actually happening. You've been watching me for 3 years through letters and messages. I've been watching you for a week through arguments and awkward dinners. And somewhere in there, he stopped, searching for the right words. You terrify me. You broke into my room. You bound me without asking, but you also fixed my communicator and brought me to this garden and showed me your secrets without trying to justify them. And I can't stop thinking about you, which is probably not healthy, but here we are. Shiara stared at him. What are you saying? I'm saying I want you to teach me the words. He met her dark eyes and held them. The claiming words, in Karathi. So when I speak them tomorrow, I get them right. Her hand trembled as she reached for his. You don't have to do this. You don't have to choose me just because the alternative is blood. I'm not choosing you because of blood price. He let her take his hand, felt the warmth of her fingers against his. I'm choosing you because you waited 3 years for someone you'd never met. Because you'd rather die than keep me trapped. Because somewhere between the locking of doors and the fixing of communicators, I started to see what you saw in those letters. And what's that? Someone worth waiting for. He squeezed her hand. Now teach me how to pronounce mine in a way that doesn't start a diplomatic incident. The arbitration hall fell silent when Ren Coulter stood. He had practiced the words until his throat ached, until Shiara's corrections blurred together, until the sounds felt less foreign and more like something that had always lived inside him waiting to be spoken. The elders watched from their carved stone seats, their ears angled forward with expressions ranging from curiosity to barely concealed disdain. Tavik stood at the chamber's edge, his face unreadable. The human wishes to speak, the eldest said in accented human language. This is unusual. I wish to invoke my right to participate in Karathi custom. Ren's voice echoed in the ancient chamber. As one who has studied it, as one who has learned. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Shira sat rigid in her chair, her dark eyes fixed on him with something between hope and terror. You are not Karathi, another elder observed. Our customs are not yours to invoke. Your laws bound me without my consent. If I am subject to those laws, I am entitled to their protections. Ren had rehearsed this argument with Tavik through sleepless nights, searching for precedent in records that stretched back centuries. The Treaty of Valros, Section 47. Any being bound by Karathi law may participate in Karathi ritual resolution. The eldest's ears twitched. Amusement, maybe, or grudging respect. You have studied. I had excellent motivation. Very well. Speak your resolution. Ren turned to face Shayara. She had risen from her chair without seeming to realize it, her hands clasped tight against her chest. In the amber light filtering through the chamber's high windows, her white skin glowed, and her dark hair caught colors like captured shadows. Aitson, he said, and his accent was imperfect, but his meaning was clear. You are mine, as I am yours. I speak the binding words not in answer to your claim, but as a claim of my own. Mutual recognition. Mutual knowing. The chamber erupted. Elders spoke over each other in rapid Karathi, some gesturing emphatically, others simply staring at the human who had just invoked one of their oldest ceremonies. Tavik pushed forward through the crowd, his expression shifting from shock to something that might have been pride. Shayara crossed the distance between them in 3 quick strides. Her hands found his face, her palms cool against his cheeks, her onyx eyes searching his for doubt or deception. You don't have to do this, she whispered. You could still walk away. I spent 6 years walking away from everything. He covered her hands with his own. I'm tired of running from things that scare me. I scare you. Absolutely, but the good kind of scared. The kind that means something matters. The eldest called for order, her voice cutting through the chaos with practiced authority. When silence returned, she studied the pair before her with ancient eyes. The mutual claiming has not been invoked in 70 years. It requires witnesses, traditional challenges, a sponsor for the outsider. I'll sponsor him. Tavik stepped forward, and Ren felt something loosen in his chest at the sight of his friend standing beside him. He's been part of my household for weeks. He's learned our customs. He removed his boots at the threshold before anyone told him it mattered. You would sponsor someone into your own family? Bind your friend to your sister? Tavik's ears flattened briefly, then rose with determination. My sister chose him. He chose her back. The least I can do is make sure they don't embarrass themselves during the ceremony. The ritual that followed was unlike anything Ren had experienced. There were formal challenges, symbolic gestures he'd practiced but didn't fully understand, and responses that Shayara guided him through with patient whispers. There were witnesses called and oaths spoken, and at one point a ceremonial knife that made his heart race until he realized it was only for drawing a single drop of blood from each of their palms. Bound by choice, the eldest intoned as their blood mingled. Bound by recognition. Bound by the knowing that crosses the void between stars. When it was finished, Shira's hand remained in his, their mixed blood drying on their palms. The elders dispersed with varying degrees of approval and scandal. Tavik approached with an expression caught between exasperation and warmth. You're family now, he said. Officially, which means my mother is going to try to feed you until you explode. I've made peace with my fate. You've made peace with my sister, which is considerably more dangerous. But Tavik was smiling as he clasped Ren's shoulder. Take care of her. She pretends she doesn't need it, but she does. I heard that, Shiara said. You were meant to. They found their way to the rooftop garden as evening fell, the amber light painting everything in shades of honey and gold. Below them, Valros continued its eternal commerce, unaware that anything had changed. But something had changed. Ren could feel it in the way Shayara leaned against him, without hesitation, in the easy silence between them, in the sense that he had finally stopped running and found something worth standing still for. Your ship will be repaired soon, she said. The Meridian Drift. Will you still fly it? Will you come with me? She turned to look at him, surprised. You'd want that. A Karathi merchant fleet officer on a human freight vessel. I'd want you. The rest is just logistics. Her smile was slow and wondering, transforming her sharp features into something achingly beautiful. I spent 3 years in space trying to find where I belonged. I never thought the answer would be a human engineer with a broken ship and terrible jokes. My jokes are excellent. You just don't appreciate human humor. Your jokes are objectively terrible. I love them anyway. The words settled between them like a promise. Ren pulled her closer, feeling the warmth of her against him, the reality of her after so many days of uncertainty. Some locks aren't on doors, he said quietly. They're on hearts, waiting for someone with the right codes. That's either profound or ridiculous. Probably both. He pressed a kiss to her hair, breathing in the floral scent he'd come to associate with her. I'm told I contain multitudes. She laughed, and the sound rose into the amber sky like music, like coming home, like finally understanding that belonging wasn't about where you came from, but who claimed you and who you claimed in return.